Hello and welcome to a Noclip production tutorial. My name is Jayne and I'm typically the man on the other side of the camera during a Noclip production. But today what I'm going to be doing is running through an inventory of all the gear that I use, explaining why I like that particular piece of kit, what it does, why it's important, why I chose it, and then showing you how I break it all down into about 4 or 5 bags and hard cases so that I can transport it across the globe to make lovely video game documentaries for you lovely people. So I'll start where it seems exceedingly obvious to start, which is with my camera. I shoot on a Canon C100. It has a great form factor. It's great for handheld shooting. It's relatively light. It's incredibly durable. This camera has been through hell and high water with me. The top handle is nice for the occasional weird running shot. Like the one that comes to mind is the Rocket League RC car shots. I was just holding the top handle and running behind an RC car for those. In addition to that, it's got 2 powered XLR ports, which is nice because if you have fewer than 3 subjects mic'd, you do not have to run dual system audio, so it keeps things simple. One of the best things about this camera is that it has a built-in neutral density toggle inside of the actual housing of the camera. So there's a toggle switch that allows you to add 2, 4, or 6 stops of neutral density to your shot without having to mess around with filters on the end of your lens. This is incredibly useful if you want to throw a bunch of light at a subject and then add some neutral density so you can shoot with the shallow depth of field. Or if you're shooting in really high light scenarios, like if you're outside, it keeps things really simple, especially for run and gun situations where you can't really afford to be stopping and screwing and unscrewing filters all the time. So right now I'm shooting with the ND1 setting, which cuts 2 stops of light, and really quickly I'll show you what the other settings look like. So this is the same f-stop and ISO with no neutral density. Clearly it's kind of blown out because I'm using a light source and there's a window behind me. This is 2 stops of ND, which is what I'm shooting at for this whole video. This is the ND2, which cuts 4 stops of light. And finally, this is the ND3, which cuts 6 stops of light, clearly a bit much for this situation. So next I'll go into the lenses I use. My primary lens is a Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter. It goes down to an f1.8 and they refer to it as their art lens. I think that's just a marketing gimmick term, but I'll let them get away with it because this lens is a powerhouse. It's super durable, it's mostly metal, it's incredibly heavy. You could probably kill a man by throwing this at someone's head. And it's incredibly sharp, and I just love the quality of the image that this lens creates. I use it every time I can get away with using it. I use it for a lot of interviews, and it's great for run and gun. It's just, I can't recommend this lens enough. It's a little on the expensive side, but it truly has been an investment over the years. The other lenses that I make use of are 2 Rokinon primes, a 35 millimeter and an 85 millimeter. Out of the 2, the 85 is definitely the one that I use more because it's more than double the long end of my Sigma. So if you recall the shots that we did from like the 30th floor of Square Enix's building in Tokyo, all of those were shot with the 85 millimeter Rokinon. I love this lens. The great thing about a long lens is also that it flattens the image as opposed to a wide lens, which makes things seem farther away in space. So if you need to collapse the image for stylistic or utilitarian reasons, go for a longer focal length. So for an audio solution, what I use are a set of RodeLink Lavalier mics. They're incredibly reliable and durable. In addition to the lavalier mics, I always have a Rode NTG2 shotgun mic riding on top of my camera. This is important for a couple reasons. For run and gun scenarios, you're not always going to be able to throw a lavalier mic on everyone that you're recording, or if the lav mic goes into my shirt or someone covers it or coughs into it or it's boomy or they have a beard or hair or something that covers it, you can see as I'm just even moving around like this that it's interfering with my signal, and it's always nice to have another source of audio so you can mix the two together and create the best audio mix possible. I've never had problems with interference, but just in case I do, I also carry a set of Rode brand wired lavalier mics and some very long XLR cables. It's also good to have extra microphones in case your number of subjects exceeds what you think it's going to be. So for example, if there are 3 people talking on camera and Danny is interviewing them, what I can do is have 2 of them on the RodeLink wireless lavs going into the 2 XLR ports in the C100, And then I have Danny and the third subject going into a TASCAM DR40 external recorder that I carry with me always just in case, because there are only 2 XLR ports on the C100. So always make sure you have not only enough microphones, but enough ports to plug those microphones into. And always make sure you do a slate, like a clap audio slate, so that when you go to sync up your audio later, you don't have to scramble around and try to get everything into sync. For audio monitoring, I use Beyerdynamic DT770s. These are the DT770 Studios, and they're 80 ohm. These are great headphones. Their audio is super clear. The noise cancellation on them is also fantastic, which is nice because it allows me to do editing in loud places or on planes, or just take a nap somewhere and block out the world for a while. So I can't recommend them enough. And they're under $200, and yeah, they're fantastic. For a tripod, I use a Manfrotto 502AH fluid head. It's a pretty reasonably affordable fluid head tripod that does what it needs to do. It takes a little bit of breaking in, but once you get the hang of it and dial the settings in right and use it enough that it no longer has that weird like new tripod head stick to it, it's really reliable and really smooth. The legs that I have it on are Manfrotto 055, which are just rock solid tripod legs. On top of my camera, I always have an Atomos Ninja Blade for a couple of reasons. One is it's a 720p monitor, which really helps for composing an image, for doing focus racks, getting everything really tight, looking nice. Gives you a much better image of what you're looking at through the camera than the C100 built-in little tiny screen. In addition to that, it's an external recorder that records to solid-state drives. So there's a couple of reasons this is useful. One, they have a very high capacity. Two, it writes directly to ProRes files, so I shoot in ProRes HD directly onto a solid-state drive. Three, it shoots at a bit rate that's about 8 times higher than the native bit rate to SD cards in the C100. And 4, it allows you to shoot a redundancy image using the SD card. So what I'm doing every time I shoot is recording onto the Atomos and recording onto the SD card, so that if the camera fails during a shot, the Atomos will still be rolling and I can hit cut and complete the shot and figure out what's going on. Or conversely, if the Atomos overheats or goes down, or the HDMI gets yanked out or something happens, then if that file corrupts, I will always have a backup on the SD card. In terms of batteries, I carry 3 Sony batteries because the Atomos runs on Sony batteries, and I carry 2 Canon batteries. They're the smart Lithium-Ion batteries, so they have a percentage monitor that pops up on your camera screen. However, in addition to these, it's important to have a solution in case batteries get lost or they run out and you don't have a place to charge, or the time to charge more likely than not. So make sure you have a power adapter so that you could plug your camera or your external recorder into a wall outlet while your batteries charge up. So for a lighting solution, what both Danny and myself own are Fovitec StudioPRO LED panels. They're relatively affordable. They're nice because they have 2 separate dimmer switches for the 2 different color temperatures. So there's a 3200 Kelvin or tungsten balanced dimmer, and there's a 5600 Kelvin or daylight balanced dimmer, so that you can match the light or the color temperature of the light in whatever scenario you're in. Right now I'm running them at 5600 Kelvin because I've got daylight behind and to the side, and I want it to look nice. And that is mounted on a Cowboy Studio pretty standard light stand. A couple more odds and ends that are necessary for any camera kit are an extension cable is usually something that I have in my tripod case, as well as a surge protector or power strip in case I don't have enough outlets for everything that I need, because you end up plugging in 100 things between lights and charging batteries, etc., etc. So those are necessary. Power adapters for foreign outlets is also incredibly important. So do your research before you travel abroad and make sure that you have the right adapters for wherever you're going, lest you knock out the power in a city block in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and cannot figure out where the circuit breaker is. So for camera cases, my primary case is a Pelican 1510, which is where I store my camera and lenses. It's an incredibly durable, waterproof case. It's made to FAA standards, so it fits in the overhead compartment of most planes, unless you're flying on a little tiny regional plane, in which case you'll have to check it, but I've done that a number of times and it's always been fine. In addition to that, I used to have a Liebeck tripod case for most of the things we shot, and in there goes my tripod, light stands, cables, things that aren't breakable that I can afford to put in a check bag. But I've recently purchased a Tenba light stand case, which is where I'll put my tripod now. It's a little bit bigger, and it's got wheels, which is nice because the Liebeck is one of the most ergonomically poor designs of any bag I've ever had in my life. The straps are like 2/3 up the body of it, and it just doesn't make any sense. So do yourself a favor, cases with wheels, thank me later. In addition to this, I put my Atomos into its own custom mini Pelican style hard case that comes with the Atomos. I believe all Atomos products, at least their external recorders, come with this type of case, but it's incredibly durable. I check my Atomos every time I fly with it, and I just put it into a little duffel bag so that it doesn't look like a little valuable Pelican case floating around on its own. So I have a satchel bag that I put it into and just wrap it in t-shirts for a little extra padding, and it's made it everywhere it needs to go in one piece. Finally, I have a pretty standard LL Bean suitcase that I put most of my clothing in, as well as anything that I don't trust in a check bag. So my microphone's right in there with me, battery charger for the C100, things like that, external hard drives. A lot of that stuff just comes with me under the seat in front of me on the plane because I don't trust it in a check bag. Of course, I could get another hard case to check these things in, but once you reach a certain number of hard cases, it gets exceedingly difficult to carry everything around on your own. So I've never had a problem putting it all into my suitcase. I just have to migrate some of my clothing into my tripod case to make everything fit. But it's nice to double up and have a lot of those little bits and bobs be in your normal suitcase, because once I go past 4 or 5 bags, it's impossible to travel alone. And oftentimes Danny and I will fly separately because he now lives in Maryland and I'm in Oakland. So I need to be able to carry everything on my own, and I need to do so in a way that doesn't completely ruin my back. So that about does it for my camera kit inventory breakdown. If y'all have additional questions about anything that I mentioned or beyond, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. Feel free to reach out to me wherever you can get a hold of me. Stalk me in the streets and call my name from the rafters, and I'll be there with answers and help. I want to leave you with a couple pieces of advice that I wish someone had told me years ago before I started doing this, and hopefully my failures can be to your benefit. So first of all, plan for the worst happening. Bring extra batteries, bring extra cables, bring too many microphones, bring extra SD cards, bring extras of almost everything that you can afford to bring extras of, because when you're traveling with camera gear, things will get broken, things will go missing. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong given enough time to go wrong. So plan for the worst, and most importantly, make multiple backups of your footage and give those drives to different people. Just diversify your backups for your own safety and sanity. In addition to that, get camera insurance if you're an owner-operator. It's not that expensive. It's totally worth it. If you're in a scenario where your camera's at risk and the rift opens in the earth and threatens to swallow you whole, toss the camera in to appease it and claim the insurance. It's never worth your safety being at risk to protect your camera. Even though camera gear is expensive and your livelihood may be on the line, get camera insurance for your sanity and safety, please, for the love of God. And finally, if you're in a scenario where an airline is giving you trouble because you're trying to bring on a giant Pelican case that you swear to God fits in the overhead but doesn't fit in the little wire mesh thingy to prove it, explain to them that you're media, or that you're a camera person, or that you're on a work trip with your camera gear. For whatever reason, I guess this must happen often enough that they take pity on you and they may let you on. It doesn't always work, but in my experience, the single most effective words to explain why you have a giant hard suitcase with you is to tell them that you're on a work trip and that you're carrying camera equipment, and that if it shatters in the cargo hold of the plane, your life will be ruined. Work up a few tears if you're able. So yeah, that's about it. And thank you all so much to the patrons out there for supporting the work we do. This is absolutely my favorite thing to do, is make these documentaries and see people react to them and hear how much people appreciate them. And yeah, hopefully many, many years of Noclip to come. So thank you.
So we've just realized that I tried to get one that was full size. Alec was very particular about getting a full size one.
Yeah.
I think this is full size to like elementary school children.
But a dead child.
So I think this might be a dead child.
Oh my God.
So our video is going to have...
Cut this out of the behind the scenes. No one can know.
I think this is going to have... You can tell he's a dead child because he keeps dabbing.
Fucking kids these days, man.